quilt people of gratitude and all things spiritually fit. Welcome back. Today is not necessarily going to be a sewing tutorial, but I thought it'd be kind of fun just to do a Q&A. So I put it out on Facebook for everyone to submit their questions, and so I'm just going to have some fun, be stupid, imagine that, and just answer some of your questions just for fun. What do you think of my hair lately? It's getting so long. Like, I'm having this Matthew McConaughey kind of, I don't know, moment. So we'll see how that works out. But, you know, just have fun with your style. I'm really into it. Just exploring everything that works and some things that don't. Oops. Don't worry about it. It's all temporary, isn't it? Anyhow, so yeah, I just wanted to, do this little fun video just for the sake of being silly and having some fun. And also, maybe we can get to know each other a little bit better, because it's not just about me telling you about, my life and thoughts, but it's also me learning from you, and whatever you post and whatever, I can do to learn from you as well and share that with others, I think is awesome. Okay, because that's what we're all here to do, is to help each other along, right? So let's look at some of these questions. I just copy and pasted them, not in any particular order, and not really having read them in depth, so we'll see what we get. I'm all like, ooh, not that one. Not yet. We don't need to know each other that well. Maybe someday. Anyhow, when did you acquire your penchants for and love of quilting? Oh, great question. So I started quilting kind of essentially with the birth of my niece. And that was in 1999. And back then, I was still a performer, and so I'd be on tour sometimes for weeks at a time, and we'd be going from one city to the next. And, this was back before personal handheld computers and games and all of that. So you really needed something to do on the bus, because I remember one time we went for 3 days, 12 hours on the bus for 3 days. Oh my gosh. Anyhow, so that's when I started quilting, was on the tour bus. And I was teaching myself on a bumpy vehicle. In the back of the bus, it was like, okay, just figuring it out. But I did everything by hand. That's how I started, because I didn't know how to learn. I didn't know how to use a sewing machine for like the longest time. So I did everything by hand. And so that's when I first kind of got into it. Was on tour, and just as something fun to do. Anyhow, that's when it all started, 1999. And then once my niece was born, I'd kind of like gotten the idea, like, this is cool, because my friends were having babies, right? And I was like, oh, this is a really great gift. It's so personal, right? And it's really one that I wanted to deliver to my niece, because I couldn't think of anything more heartfelt. And that's what I really wanted, for us to be able to welcome the newest member into our family, right? And so that's kind of how it all started. And, like, I'm slightly an addictive person. Shh. And so, like, for many of us, like, we pick it up, and the next thing you know, oh, my entire, like, house is, like, dedicated to this one thing, and I'm, like, totally addicted. I don't know if it's the same way for you, but, like, after, I don't know, like, a couple years of doing it, I was like, oh, wow, this is super cool. This is super fun, because it brought all of my kind of natural skills into like one place, and the things I find super interesting, which is math, right? Geometry, right? And all those things, design, and color, and all these things as a performer that I'd kind of worked with and worked in for my entire career up until that point. So that's how I started quilting. Next question. Where do you find inspiration for your designs? That's a good question. Like the last video I posted as far as transposing design, like that's just one way, and I want to actually do a follow-up to that video because while in the first video I showed you what I'm seeing, I'd like to do another video that actually takes that another step further, and I'll do that maybe next time. I just run out of time, you know. So it's like the last video I took, it took 3 hours to make it, and so by the end of the 3 hours I'm like, got other things to do with my day. I can't spend the whole day doing this, you know? So I do want to follow up with that, but where do I find my... So this is really important too, and very, very, very different, okay? So inspiration for quilt design is very, very different from fabric design. And it's real. I find it really interesting that the majority of the fabric designers are not quilters. Like, how? Like, how can you know what you're designing for if you don't truly understand the art form and how your fabric that you're designing is going to be used, right? And so I know that sometimes my fabric lines are a little bit like off the wall, but it's because they're not to be used. Oh, I'm going to elaborate on this in a second. My fabric line is not to be used like a traditional fabric line, okay? My fabrics are meant to be mini collections, right, that you can incorporate into your work, okay? So whether you use the black and whites or whatever it is, that in each mini collection, like if you just look at Leaf when it comes out, look at just the black and whites. And in there, you will find a black and white stripe, a black and white kind of background with lots of noise, right? And you'll find a black and white traditional print, right? And so in each little mini collection, those are how they're supposed to be used, okay? So if you just take all 30 fabrics and put them together into one quilt where they all have the same value, right? And you're using them all for the same purpose, that's not how I see it, okay? If you want to use it that way, go right ahead. All right. And I hope you love it. And I hope that you get to use it your way. However, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail once the fabric line is a little bit closer to being in shops so that you understand like what is a background fabric, right? What is noise? Right? In a design or a photograph, right? We often hear about that being applied to a photograph. What is noise? Okay? In a design, right? What is a stripe? Because, you know, some of these things are not always self-evident, I think, to some people who look at the fabric line. And so I really want to dive into that a little bit more, but I'm getting off track. What am I doing? But where do I find my inspiration for my design? So again, big difference between quilt pattern design and fabric design, okay? So for my, oh, and by the way, this is Unified Divide, and thank you Allison Brookins for the name of the quilt. I think it turned out pretty good. Excuse me. So this is the second quilt that I made with the Leaf fabrics, right? The first one being this one that I showed, I think, before. It's called Prairie Pastures, all right? So when you look at these quilts, right, and the quilt design, right, the first thing I kind of address, ooh, I have another one too that I'm working on. It's not quite finished yet, but it's about halfway done. I thought you might enjoy a little sneak peek. I put some of it on Instagram and stuff like this. But this is another one from the fabric line, right? And I think I'm going to call it Which Way Winter or something along those lines. Because look at all the arrows. Aren't that cool? Like, you got green arrows, you got white arrows. Like, which way is Christmas? This way. So, sorry, I'm cracking myself up here. What else is new? All right, what am I doing? All right, so quilt design itself is really very much akin to geometry, right? And so I look at shapes, and then I look at the field of the shape and what I want that to do. Because I often, especially when I'm designing a quilt pattern for a new fabric line, I often want to give it space to breathe, right? So that you can really see the fabric, right? If they're all like little tiny, 2-inch squares, you're not going to see the fabric design in the same way as if I left a big field, right? Or area of the same fabric. Right, so look at this one. It was the first design, and again, I really wanted the fabrics to be shown so that you can get a good sense, a big swatch, right, of the fabric to understand it, right? And so that's what this provides. I'm not step on a dog here, right? And so you have the opportunity to really see each fabric, right? And then I also didn't do a lot of quilting on, I did leaves. Isn't that cool? So that you can really see each fabric that's in the quilt because it's not chopped up too much, right? And so that's what I'm going to do. But like, even this Grove print, right? So if you look at the Grove fabric, you have to, again, and I'm going to do another video on this just top to bottom. All right, so this is part of the Grove fabric, which is actually a representation of a real leaf, right? And because this line is an updated version of camouflage, right? I really wanted to incorporate leaves and sticks and, different textures, right? To represent that so that we can all kind of relate back to those items, right? So if you look at this fabric, right, which is leaves, and it's pretty obvious, right, that it's a stripe. So this is, I have 2 stripes in the collection. I have this one and then the one that I used here, right, which is actually, it's a cross, but my intention was for that and for this to be the stripe in the collection. Okay, so if you're looking for a really great stripe, sashing, oh my gosh, sashing done in a stripe is so effective, like I did on this one here. Pardon me, coming through. Right, so on my Stetson cross, look at this. I did the sashing in a stripe, right? It's very, very, very effective when you find really good places to use a stripe. Now, that being said, a stripe can have a lot of noise depending on its contrast level, so, you just need to be mindful of that. Although, I was looking at a book in there in my office, and it was all stripes, this one quilt, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually really effective. I would have been scared of that initially, but having seen it done, now I'm kind of inspired to work with stripes a little bit more, so we'll see where that leads. Okay. All right. So that's my approach to designing a new quilt pattern, right? It's very much about the geometry and the field that I want to look at. So that's the first thing I start to address. Where I find my inspiration, oh gosh, I don't know. I just see it everywhere. I'm like, oh, that's really cool the way that that's fitting together, right? And then, of course, I have a degree in graphic design, so I do, most of my work as far as just, because I have to see it to understand it, right? A lot of people can just have it in their brain. And I know a lot of men actually, their brains tend to work this way. They have a hard time visualizing. Not that I have a hard time visualizing, but I have to really see it in order to understand it and how it's going together and all that stuff. And then I get to play with it and move it around and switch it up and do all that. And it often becomes like it kind of just bubbles to the surface, right? I have an idea or an intention of what I want to do, but it doesn't often fully find itself until I've worked it a bit, you know what I mean? And so that's just computer knowledge. That's just understanding and having fun with geometry, and then just mixing different shapes together and seeing what it comes up with. But where I find my inspiration is really just in the world. Everywhere I go, I see something that I want to try. So there's just never enough time in the day or enough fabric. So we create our own. Why not? Okay. Excuse me, I'm choking a little bit today. Next question. Is John commuting all the way back to LA? He is. So we've been out here in Palm Springs about 2 years now. and he still has a salon in Beverly Hills. And so he's spending usually about 3 days in Beverly Hills at his salon, and then he works 2 days here in Palm Springs at one of the country clubs. So that's kind of his work schedule. But yeah, he commutes. He'll leave here, at 7. He'll get to LA by 9:30 or so. He'll work the whole day, and then leave the salon at like 5 and be home around 7:30. So, it's a 12-hour day for him with 5 hours of commuting. God bless him. But he's very committed to, doing this and to allowing our family to have this beautiful home in Palm Springs. We could never afford a house of this level in LA. Like, it's just, it's a lot cheaper out here in Palm Springs. So that's one reason we made the move. And we had to sell 2 houses to get this house, but we got it. We love it. Anyways, yes, so that's the answer to that question. Does quilting for content or money add stress to your hobby? Has the enjoyment changed since you moved from hobby to more like a job like quilting? So that's a good question. And the answer is kind of yes, but kind of no. Okay, so the only time that I struggle with quilting as kind of a business instead of just a hobby, and to clarify, it really is still a hobby for me. I really don't make a lot of money at doing this. I mean, you got to sell a lot of $10 patterns, pay for this house. Just doesn't add up. So, yeah, I am, I have a little side business and, it pays for my car payment or something like that each month. And I'm really grateful for that. Like I said, every little bit helps. So I'm truly grateful for that. But the only time I don't enjoy having moved it from strictly a hobby into really what I'm doing now is when I'm having to do something under pressure. Oh my gosh, I cannot design under pressure. Like, the pressure of having to come up with a design stops the flow, right? And I really need to be in flow of, spirit or inspiration or whatever it is you want to call it, in order to come up with good design. And so that's the only time I don't enjoy it, because a lot of times there are deadlines and things like this, and that's a real struggle for me. But other than that, I just love it so much. It's not really even a hobby for me. I've always said it's my life's work. It's not just making quilts, right? Because this will all be around a lot longer than I will be, right? And so, I see this not only as my life's work, but also a little bit as far as this goes, like us doing this whole thing. Like, I kind of see it a little bit, and it's probably because my father was a Baptist minister, but it's a little bit like my ministry, if you will, right? I feel very connected and encouraged to be with quilters, right? And people in the community. And so we're all sharing, and hopefully we're all, challenging ourselves, and not just in our quilting, but also with the way that we're living and how we're being and how we're showing up for each other in the world, right? And I feel like that part of it, right, is as important to me as the quilting part. And so I really, really, really enjoy, doing the public speaking and the teaching and being able to connect with people on that level. So that is my thoughts around that. As far as, is it stressful moving it from solely a hobby into having a little small, home business? So it's working out. I love it. But that's kind of what it's like. Would be interested in your daily spiritual practice to see if my thoughts are right. Okay. So first of all, your thoughts are always right. Because they're your thoughts. And so for me, my daily spiritual practice, which is a really, really big part of my life, again, having grown up in a Christian home, while that was really not great, oh my gosh, you Christians really need to get over your homophobia. You really do. Okay? You don't get to vilify a certain community in order to make yourself feel more righteous. You don't. That time is over, and I swear to God, if you bring it up, there's going to be an issue, because I don't back down from this thing, okay? I lived a lifetime of verbal abuse and just being terrorized by Christianity, okay? Because I grew up in a family that knew that being gay was against the teachings of Christ. Okay? I grew up being told that I was incompatible with the teachings of Christ. To the point where, when I showed up at my father's funeral, my mother looked at me and she told me, what kills your father was you being gay. That's what I know of God's love. Now, that having been said, I'm truly grateful for portions of my upbringing that introduced me to kind of the idea that things are outside of myself that are also connected to myself, right? And so my spiritual practice is very, very, very important to me. I hope that comes across. It was like I was thinking the other day, like I had said in one of my videos, I'm actually super aggressive as a human, and I am. But hopefully I've done the work, right? To be able to move myself, right, beyond the confines of what we think, right? Because thoughts are not, facts. I'm not going to go there. Anyhow, so I hope that I've done the work in order to evolve, because what I do know in terms of where I am spiritually and where I'm headed is that the amount of difference that there is between the body and the spirit, the body and the mind, right? So you have the body, right, which is just a bag of meat, right, that we're just walking around in. So the body and the mind, which is the electricity and the magic of the universe, quite frankly. And so, as much of a difference as there is between the body and the mind, I also know that there's that much difference, right, between the personality and the spirit. So if we can hold on to that thought and really look at it in terms of what am I doing to, well, first of all, I believe self-teach, right? All the answers that you seek are within yourself. Because the answers that you seek are the answers that you seek. And if you're taking in other people's answers, right, for your, right, beingness, right, if you're taking other people's answers, you're not answering your questions. You're having others answer your questions. And I don't subscribe to that at all, right? I believe that if I can quiet the mind enough, right, I really can allow source to flow. Okay? So I hope that we're all good with that term, right? Source to flow. And so I believe, and I think that this has been part of my ability to manifest things in the, physical plane, is by actually also really getting quiet and tuning into where are those things, right? And so you kind of activate your mind to look for opportunity, potential, whatever it is that you have within yourself, okay? So as far as a spiritual practice, I believe that the first thing that you have to really do is get quiet. Everything that you want to hear, you can hear if you're willing to be quiet enough. Right? So that's the first thing. The second is to really bring all of that's here, right? Your thoughts, the craziness of the mind, right? Into a much more deliberate place. Okay? So writing it down is the first step of bringing something from this world into this physical world. Right? So if you're trying to manifest something and it's just all up here and none of it's written down or brought into the physical world in some way or another, right? And that includes talking about it, writing it down, telling others, right? Those are really, really, really important. Okay? So, whatever, verbalize it, say it, do a mantra, say it, okay? Write it down. Have a plan. 3, tell others. Okay? So that's the way that we kind of manifest things from this world into this world, right? The physical. And that is its own practice. But on top of that, also just getting right within yourself is another practice. And again, I'm not going to go into all of that I practice and believe, but for me, journaling every day is a big part of my spiritual practice. My sewing, yay, sewing is a big part of my spiritual practice. I see it kind of as a walking meditation, if you will. If you don't know what a walking meditation is, that's something where you're doing something more active while meditating. Okay, and so for me, it's getting, just being in the flow of sewing, right? And so we're just doing the repetitive thing over and over and over again while we're allowing, right, the mind to be open, right? And be able to hear, right, or receive those messages. I don't know if I get these sometimes that it's so like, wow, I call it a spiritual download where you just get this whole like thought that completely changes your entire landscape of understanding, right? And so when I get one of those downloads, I'm like, it's so like it's beyond an aha, right? We've all had an aha, but beyond that, there's actually I feel like a download to a computer. I feel the same way, but it just comes in and it changes everything, right? And it's just a matter of being open to that. It's like I say, opportunity is available to those who believe that it is there. Okay? So just keep that in mind. What else? What other hobbies, talents, and interests do you have besides quilting? Family time. I mean, me and John and our 4 dogs, and we go to the dog park, and friends and family. Although 2020 has been a little bit tougher for that. Just being connected to people. My real estate business. I mean, I don't talk about it a lot, but it's my job. This I just do for fun. But I do have a job. And so beyond all of this, which I probably spend about 6 hours a day on, right? I also spend a couple hours a day doing my real estate business and working with buyers and sellers here in Palm Springs and helping people, move on with their lives in one way or another. And that's really rewarding and grateful as well. But that's where my more, dominant personality types comes in. When I'm in negotiations with a real estate contract, you better not play with me because I will come for you. Woo. Even sometimes I walk away from a conversation like, really? Did you have to go there? I'm fun. Anyhow, so really other than that, John and I love going to theater. We love to travel, so those are big on the list as well. All right. Would you ever return to Canada? Oh my God. I want to go back so bad. I'm sorry. But and I will never bash America, but it's, I don't know. It's like, people are always like, America is the greatest country in the world. And I'm like, have you lived anywhere else? Because, like, get back to me when you figure out affordable health care and, I don't know, maybe the metric system. Like, hello? America, get it together. Like, every other first world country has these things in place. Right? And we're back fighting against, like, what? Like, it's so backwards to me. Like, I honestly, when I moved to America, it blew my mind. Like, really? You let people go poor because they get sick. And then, furthermore, you attach their health insurance, their, lifeline, literally lifeline to living to their job. And when they get sick, they lose their job, so they lose their insurance? Really? This makes no sense. I don't know how else to tell you that. But it's mean. It's mean-spirited. It's unethical. It's unkind. Right? My sister in Canada pays $35 a month for her health insurance. There's never a bill. She has to go to the hospital. There's no bill for the ambulance. There's no bill for the hospital. There's no bill for the doctors. She just pays $35 a month. That's it. That's all she ever pays. John and I, we pay over $1,800 a month because of our pre-existing conditions. We're dying under that crippling weight. Okay? So this is something we really got to figure out. But beyond that, what the hell was I talking about to begin? Oh, would I ever return to Canada? Sorry. But come on. I mean, let's do better. Let's help each other out. Let's develop a government that is kind and works for the benefit of the people, not for the corporations and insurance companies. I don't understand how this country has gotten so out of alignment with those basic human things. I don't get it. And I know I'm come from a different country, but I would think that these things are, self-evident as to how we should be doing it. But, anyways, people in this country just really freak out. I'm like, I'm from Canada. They're like, isn't that a socialist country? I'm like, yes, it is. Why? Like, we don't go broke when we get sick. Anyhow, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. All right, go on with that. But would I ever return to Canada? In a second. In fact, I've talked about moving back to Canada, and I would love for that to happen. I really would love to be back in Canada, but John and I have really worked hard to set up our life here. We're still going back and forth, but with COVID and everything, we just can't even get across the border. So it's really tough. Anyhow, what are your favorite quilt schemes? Oh, okay. Quilt schemes. So as far as color schemes, gosh, I always go through different phases of what I like and what I don't like. What I do tend to like is obviously evident in my fabric lines, right? I tend to like things that are handsome, right? Not necessarily masculine, because things that are handsome can be attractive to both men and women, right? And so I tend to like those types of, color combinations, things like that, as far as color schemes. Do you travel to quilt shows to share ideas? Yes, I do. I travel quite a bit and teach all over, both in the US and Canada. Obviously, everything for 2020 got canceled. So, but I really enjoy that. I've had some great teaching experiences. They are a little bit tiring, I'm not getting any younger, and just between the travel and the teaching and just constantly being on and stuff, it can be a little exhausting, but I do love doing it. So yeah, I do travel quite a bit for that. Where did you come up with your designs for your latest fabric? So that's interesting. So we talked about like the quilt design itself versus the fabric design, right? Very, very different approaches. So leaving the quilt design behind and just talking about fabric design, for me, it just kind of evolves. And I don't always know. In fact, when I... Sorry. Share with the group what's in your brain, Dale. It's rather enjoyable in here. Said the man who's talking to his phone. Oh, they're just going to lock me up one day. So fabric design, like I said, it just kind of evolves. And I actually started with a whole different idea for this line that wasn't working. And so I had to kind of abandon it because everything that I was coming up with was very organic, right, in nature, right? So I don't know why, it just started developing all of these things, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of interesting, and that's kind of interesting, and that's kind of interesting, and it all has this organic material kind of vibe to it, right? So I just let that kind of percolate and see where that was going to take me as far as that goes, and I get my inspiration on the internet, just looking at different websites, looking at Pinterest, and then I just kind of play with it in the computer and see what wants to happen. So that's how I do that. How how long have you and John been together? We have been together, it'll be 10 years as of this. When did we first? Oh, February 15th, 2011 is the day we first met in person. However, we had been dating long distance for months without ever having met. So we met on Facebook. He sent me a friend request on Facebook. And so I looked, and usually when someone sends me a friend request, I look at their profile. I'm like, who is this person? Do I know them? Do I want to be involved with them in their life? So I looked at his profile, and I noticed that he has the same birthday as me. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, how often do you come across somebody with the same birthday? Now, different year, but same day of, the calendar. I am much younger. Only by 6 years. What was I saying? Sorry. Pull it together. Oh, yeah. So John and I looked at his profile on Facebook, and I was like, wow, this guy is like super handsome. And it's the same birthday, so I'm just going to send him a little, message, just pop into his DMs there and shoot him a message that says, hey, I just noticed that you sent me a friend request and we have the same birthday. Like, isn't that interesting? And he's like, yeah, I had noticed that too, actually. So we just started chatting, like, just through Messenger on Facebook. And then we just kind of kept it going. And a few days later, you're like, you got an iPhone? We could just FaceTime or whatever. It'd be kind of fun. Whatever. And so the next thing I know, we're talking for like 2 hours, 3 hours a night, every night. Right? And it was such an interesting, beautiful way to get to know somebody without, the physicality and all that comes along with that, of being in the other person's presence. And so we really had an opportunity to just really get to know each other for months before we ever met on person. And I was living in Salt Lake City at the time, going to school. And no, I'm not Mormon. And excuse me, finally decided to fly out to LA because I knew I was moving to LA after Salt Lake when I was done with school. And I was like, well, maybe you can help me find a place, and I don't really know the city, and you can show me around whatever else. And so, yeah, February 15th, 2011 was the first day that we met face-to-face. I'll never forget, he picked me up at the airport, and the first thing I said to him in person was like, wow, you're even more handsome in person. Smooth, Dale, smooth. Just dumb. I'm like, oh, was that out loud? Anyways, like they say, the rest is history. 10 years later. Okay. Ooh, that made me sweat. All right. For me, quilting is much of a mental inspiration practice as it is gardening. I'd be curious to know if your spiritual practice overlaps with quilting or other interests that you have and what you've learned from that. So yeah, like I talked about a little bit, one of my spiritual practices is the walking meditation of sewing, which I do a lot of my meditating while I'm sewing. I generally don't sew with music or anything on the background, although I have gotten into audiobooks just a little bit more. If you haven't read the book Caste, C-A-S-T-E, it's one of Oprah's Book of the Month selections. It's really great, and it's the audiobook I just listened to last. I never really understood America until I listened to that, so it's well worth your time if you find it. Again, the title is Caste, C-A-S-T-E. Okay, so that's good. And then, how long did you and your husband before you got married, and who asked who and how? Oh, I'm gonna cry! Oh! I have to tell this story, but it's a good one. So... So John and I had been dating for a while, and 5 years actually, and he has a twin brother, and I knew I'd been married before, like I've talked about a little bit, And so getting married again was not something that I really wanted to launch into, but I also knew that like John was the one, you know, and I'm very grateful for my first marriage because it really taught me what's important to me in a marriage. And so I just knew that, you know, John was the one. So I called his twin. He's got an identical twin brother. Like not just twins, they're identical twins, which is really weird because his identical twin is straight. So I get to see like the straight version of my husband. Like they have like the same voice, same mannerisms. It's crazy. It's crazy. But it's really fun. And so I called Bob and I said, I think I'm going to pop the question to John. Would you do me a huge favor and go into a jeweler and get your finger measured for what size of ring I should buy? And so he did that. And so I went to a jeweler and I picked out, we just got basic gold wedding bands. It's all I wanted because my last marriage was all about avarice, right? And just the constant pursuit of wealth and things like that, which in the end really didn't serve us. Excuse me. So I just wanted a very basic gold wedding band. And I thought, well, if he doesn't like it, we can, you know, pick something out later. But I bought him in the right size. And on the day in 2015, when the Supreme Court made gay marriage, or as we like to call it, marriage, when they recognized us as, you know, fully developed, you know, wise human beings that, you know, are able to choose for themselves what is good for them in their life. When the Supreme Court validated that, we were at the gym that morning when when it was announced that, you know, marriage equality was now law in America. And so we were at the gym and we knew it had been announced or whatever. And so we rushed home and we're sitting there on the sofa and watching TV. And I had the ring with me, right? We're sitting there watching the TV and we're watching the news and we're just seeing the massive celebrations of everybody and the joy and people getting married on the front steps of the courthouses all across the country. And at that moment, just off the sofa, like I got down on one knee, like just right there, and I popped open the box with the ring in it and I said, John, will you marry me? And he let out this noise. I'm not sure if it was a scream, a shriek. I'll never forget it. I mean, it threw him back in his chair. He was so completely shocked and surprised. And, you know, he immediately said yes and whatever else. And so we just cried like the whole day. We just cried because we were so, you know, happy, and you know, we could finally finalize our family in a manner in which we saw it, right? And so that was a really really big moment. So I asked John to marry me, and you know, it was a very emotional day that day in 2015. Okay, pull it together. Do you ever do bright colors? Love your fabric line. Yes, I do bright colors quite a bit. I have some examples that I will splice into this video. I really like bright colors. Now, they're not always my go-to, right, obviously, but I do enjoy working with them, and you'll see some examples here. Okay. Do you still work as a real estate agent? We've already covered that, yes. Do you have any collaborations planned with other makers, quilting or otherwise? Yes. So I have some pretty big things in the works right now, many of which have been tabled until we get through COVID. Okay, so I can't really talk about them, but just know that there's really big things in the works that are coming that hopefully will come to fruition next year. And that's about all I can say about that. Who encouraged you to start sewing, and what did you make first? The first thing I made was a baby quilt. Who encouraged me to get into quilting? I did. What else do you sew besides quilts? Nothing. You saw this summer my attempt to just make a tank top. Oh! It's terrible. Do not. Oh, and caftans, right? Caftans and tank tops is about all I've ever ventured outside of making quilts. I really don't know how to do anything else, but I also don't have an interest. I mean, I love this, you know. I mean, that's what I want to do every day, so that's what I do. How are you keeping fit with lockdown? We actually found an outdoor CrossFit class that we're quite enjoying. It's all socially distanced. We're outside wearing masks. We're all 6 feet apart. We all have our own equipment, which we all, wipe down afterwards. And so that's the best that we can do. On top of that, we just take the dogs for a walk, and that's about all we're doing right now. Have you always had dog kids? Would you consider a cat? Cats own their humans. Would you allow a cat kid? Maybe. Who knows? If we found the right one and it wanted to be a part of the clan, yeah, absolutely. Just, throw one on top of the pot. We love having our dogs, though. We're a bit of a motley crew. We have everything from the Great Dane down to little Bridget. But we love it. Yes, we've always had dogs, and we probably always will. We had a really serious conversation as far as having kids. But I was, 41 when we met, and, John was 47. So we just felt like we were a little bit too old to begin the process of having kids. And we felt okay about that because we really felt pulled to provide homes for animals in shelters. So we've dedicated our life to, providing homes when and where we can. And for us, that's, it's been our family. It's everything we've ever wanted. So that's kind of where we are with that. I don't know. We'll see about a cat. I'm not sure. I've never really been much of a cat person, but, there are some very cool cats out there for sure. What tools do you use to come up with your awesome patterns you have? Mostly my computer, right? So again, I will get a little piece of something, right? And then I'll just kind of twist it around, keep building on it, add more, see, like that's really the best tool that I have for creating patterns. Tell me more about your medical condition. Oh my gosh, do we have time? So, yeah, I have... It's called dystonia, okay? And it's the third largest movement disorder in America outside of Parkinson's and MS, right? And you probably think, oh gosh, like he's totally fine, like, he's totally healthy. And I really am. I mean, for the most part, I get up, I do CrossFit every day, and, but there are times where my brain, whatever reason, it's usually due to stress or being tired, being exhausted, that'll really kind of take me down. But what happens is, so it's a movement disorder where you're all familiar with writer's cramp, right? So dystonia is kind of in that same category, right? And so my hands will go like this, right? And so I'll especially this hand's the worst, right? And so it'll start to cramp up like this, and it can get so bad to the point where, I can't even, I'll lose access to my legs, I can't walk, I have a walker, I do, but, it's a day at a time, I don't really think about it. I don't really deal with it unless it's happening in the moment. But, it's just something that happens. And, some days are good, some days are bad. But, that's just it. It's a movement disorder that is controlled by the brain, which will allow me or deny me access to certain parts of my body. And so certain parts of my body will be hyper contracted, right? Or I'll just lose access to it altogether where I can't feel it or make it function, right? And that all just happens in my brain. So it's hereditary. My father had fluttering of the eyes, which is a type of dystonia. All right. I enjoy seeing the photos of your husband. Yay. Thank you. Especially enjoy seeing your tattoos and would like to know their significance. Oh, interesting question. All right, so where do we start? What do I have going on here? So I have wings on my ankles that I got after I retired from performing to kind of celebrate all that I had done as a performer and as a dancer, especially as a ballet dancer, which I did for almost 18 years. So that's the wings on my ankles. What else do I have? I have to look. So, so this one on my shoulder, which I mean, so it is actually my chart, right? So my, what do you call it? You know, the stars, astrology. Hello. It's my astrological chart that I took and turned into an image, right? So you can see like the map, right? The old antique way of mapping something, right? And so I took all of that information of what my chart was, and I'm a Taurus, right? So and then put that on my shoulder. That was my first big piece, right? And then this one over here, give Dale an excuse to take his shirt off, honey. Boom! Everyone relax. So then this piece here, right, is really, let's see if I can get it in the camera here. All right, so here you can see. So this crow, right, you see his wing that goes down my arm, right? So I can actually make his wing move, right, like this. So anyways, so the crow, right, and the skull are battling, as you can tell, right? The crow has its claws in and around the eye sockets of the skull, right? And so the significance of this is kind of like my approach to spirituality, which is I wanted the crow, which I feel like is my spirit animal, right, to be battling the skull. The crow representing the spirit, right, and the skull to represent the ego, the human ego, right? And so it's a total battle every single day for us to find the balance, right, between spirit and ego, right? And so I wanted a really big, significant piece to represent that. And I'm sure I have others. I lost track. Oh, this one. Hello. So this one, you can see it says Panem a Circes, right? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but anyways. So this one, so this is Latin for bread and circuses, right? It's an old saying that they used to use, which basically means that, well, it has two meanings, which is why I actually chose that. Because the first meaning is all you need to be happy in life is bread and circuses, right? Food and entertainment. That's all you need to be happy, truly, right? And so I thought, oh, that's kind of, interesting little way of approaching life. And it's a good thought to hold, right? I have everything I need. If I have, food and entertainment, I'm good. Like, so, but then there's another kind of more serious side of that, in that be careful what you're being offered in life in terms of those who are just offering you bread and circuses as a distraction to what else is going on. All right, so it's a little bit of a forewarning, if you will, just to be mindful and to not always necessarily believe things that are on the surface, right? But to, beyond seeing what's on the surface, like really feel what's going on. Does this feel right? Okay, so that was that, and that's good for now. All right. When you're coming to Northern California, do I golf? No. What is your favorite, and I'm Omi's favorite dessert? Oh, that's probably apple pie with the crumble on top. Oh, so good. What was your first sewing machine? I had a little Singer, right? And then I have this one here, which is a Janome Memory Craft 6600. That's the one I've had for most of my sewing. I mean, most. It's old. It's really old, but it's a great machine. And then I have this Juki that John got me for my birthday this last year. Do you still have it? What is your favorite saying? Oh, my favorite saying. My favorite saying is, "What we have to give." I just believe that, and that if we all lived through that and being of the opportunity to give, right, more than we take, oh my gosh, this world would be so much better, right? So what we have to give. That's my favorite saying. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why? India, fabric shopping. I was supposed to be there on my birthday for my 50th. Was I there? No. COVID. Oh, I wanted to go so bad. Anyhow. Maybe another time. And lastly, why are manholes round? It actually says that. Which I think is awesome. And the only thing I can come up with is maybe because pipes are round and it's like the extension and the end of a pipe. I don't know. Anyhow, that's good for today. Those were all the questions. I hope that this was fun for you. And, you can always reach out to me. I love hearing from you and your stories and, your reactions to what I have to say and things like that. So I hope that you're having an awesome day and that, I get to hear from you. You can always reach me at quiltingcowboy@gmail.com, right? And I will see you next time. Bye.